We need to talk about what big trouble we're in from a food scarcity and drought standpoint. And we also need to talk about the fact that this government is not going to share with you information that you're going to need to survive the next 24 months, much less the next 5 years. So I live in the state of Colorado, and we are in an extreme drought. The aquifers are drained, the snowpack is essentially non-existent, the lakes are dry, and the golf courses are still green. The city that I live in currently has some watering guidelines, but not watering restrictions. Surrounding communities do have some watering restrictions in place. But that hasn't stopped the data centers from being built, that hasn't stopped the golf courses from being watered, and that hasn't stopped all of the agriculture that's around the area from continuing. And it also hasn't stopped fracking operations, which use hundreds of thousands, if not millions of gallons of water. So what does this mean for all of us? Well, crops are going to fail because there isn't enough water. And farmers have been sounding the alarm about this for a while. And in fact, earlier this spring, farmers were saying it's really weird because our winter wheat never went dormant, so we don't know what kind of yields we're going to get. It was a very, very strange winter. In fact, I planted some annuals last year, things like gladiolas, which are not supposed to be hardy in zone 6A, and they are popping up all over my yard, which is totally bizarre. So basically, we have no assurance that there's going to be any kind of reliable crops. Pair that with the fact that right now, even if farmers are opting to plant with extremely high fertilizer bills because the Strait of Hormuz is closed, there's no water to water the crops. We live near an irrigation ditch. The irrigation company came by, they did their routine maintenance, and usually between like mid-May to mid-June, it flows 4 feet high, about 6 feet wide, just constantly all day, every day. There has not been a single drop of water in that irrigation ditch all year. So farmers aren't going to have the water that they need to water their crops. And then you pair that with a very late season frost after an extremely warm spring. We had peach and cherry and apple crop failures all across the entire state. So even if there was enough water to water our crops at this point, most of the fruit that was going to set for this season, it's already gone. We don't have it. There's nothing on the trees at all. And the government is doing absolutely nothing. They're not regulating data centers from being built. And in fact, Polis, who has basically recently shown himself to be an absolute tool of the fascist authoritarian regime in Washington, has approved data centers, has approved fracking operations. And this is on top of, granting clemency to Tina Peters, which is an entirely different issue. But the point here is that the government, they're not going to do anything. They're not going to be proactive at all. And if you look at other communities across the Western United States, they are in crisis mode. We have the state of Texas declare an emergency over the screwworm, which has made its way to U.S. soil for the first time since like 1968. It's going to destroy beef crops. It's going to make, beef really expensive starting in time for barbecue season. We could have told the Trump administration, and in fact, many scientists did tell the Trump administration, don't disband USAID. The programs that they do protect people. They disbanded them anyway. They did away with these programs that we needed to keep our food supply safe. And then here we are declaring a state of emergency for our cattle. And you've also got data centers coming up all over the place using water and electricity, destroying the air quality. This is not good. We are in a situation where the government is not going to look out for us. And in fact, I think that it's possible that they are just going to casually sit back and watch while large segments of the population go hungry. Not because they can't afford food, which they can't, but because the food itself is not going to be available. Super El Nino, late season frosts, drought facing the entire Western United States. We're in really big trouble, you guys. So this is all not to try to scare people, but just to be aware and to think about the choices that you're making when you're voting for people. Are your representatives thinking proactively about climate change, about drought, about conservation? And if they're not, they shouldn't get your vote.